everyone, and welcome yourselves back to the channel. Here to talk about Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Episode 1. Two episodes have dropped, but I will be reviewing episode 2 in the next few days. I, honest to God, think I have a lot to say about this, basically. So hit the subscribe button, leave a like, and let me know down below your thoughts on The Rings of Power, Episode 1. Subscribe and like, and spoilers ahead. So, I've got to say, this episode was very boring. Um, it was a horrible introduction to what I thought was just, you know, I have to compare it in this way. You watch House of Dragons, how it opened, it was exhilarating. It felt like we were back in that world of Westeros. Um, you watch this, and there's nothing relatable to what Lord of the Rings is, just because you've got elves and dwarfs. You could have literally titled this anything but like this a fantasy world. Um, there was too much bouncing around for the first episode. You had the core elf story with the girl who, she fought the giant at the start, and then she was rebelled against her crew because she was dragging them across the world, and then she was on this voyage of wanting to take down Sauron to get revenge for her brother's death. Ultimately, if that's the plot of Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, it's to do a Sauron, you've got to think, why? We know Sauron is defeated in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which is years and years later. So, and I get it's a prequel, but it seems to me like this is not going to achieve anything that we don't already know. Um, yeah, again, I'll go back to House of Dragon. You can say the same thing, but the thing is, you're battling different villains in that you're battling different Targaryens. Whereas in this, if Sauron, who is the main villain in Lord of the Rings, they could have created another villain who had came before Sauron, um, so that we know that does it get defeated, does it not? Pacing was horrible. The fact that they skipped from her as a young child that started talking to her brother, and then they skipped centuries, as they said, and centuries. I think that was a stupid decision. It was like, as years passed, as months passed, as centuries passed, like, how far are you fucking skipping? Like, there was no likable characters in this. The random storyline between that knight and the girl in that town. It's like, okay, and this guy's now moving away after 75 years because war is over. The girl jumps off the boat at the end because she doesn't want to go into the Valhalla of worlds, because she's dedicated to taking down Sauron, who doesn't get defeated by anyone of her nature. Um, this random relic was found, which I think is the thing that was marked from Sauron on her brother's chest by the young lad. This is what I'm saying. I don't know names. It was all over the place, like that random wolf that appeared when those kids of the dwarfs were getting berries. Um, I I don't know what I expected from this, but and I've watched a couple of I've watched another review, or I've watched a couple of reviews. I've said you have to look at how, when Fellowship of the Ring came on in that first hour, because it's the first hour of a prequel, there was no world building if you had never read the books. And I've never read the books. And going into that first hour of Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring, you were hooked, you were attached to Frodo and Gandalf and Samwise. And you watched this. I can't name you one character who appeared in this first hour to build on this world. The only character I know is because he's the main villain, that's Sauron. Or Sauron, however you pronounce his name. And I'm so disappointed with how bad this first episode was. Like I said, lack of understanding of what the true goal of this series is. She is not a captivating main character. Her relationship with the elves was so meh. Uh, just it didn't feel like Lord of the Rings, because just because you stick Middle Earth on it, just because you mention Sauron, it could have been anything. It's I don't know. I just don't know what to think about it. I'm hoping episode 2 is better because obviously that'll establish the story, and maybe that's why they released 2 episodes, so you get that story. But imagine if you watched this first episode and it released with just 1 episode, you'd be like, "Okay, I have to wait an extra week to what? Find out what?" The fact that she's jumped off a boat, the fact that that town was set on fire, the fact that, like, that young kid found a relic. Like, I'm gonna give it time to see if it develops into something better, but it just when I watch House of Dragons, and I'll keep comparing, and when you watch House of Dragons, it flies by. It flows. There's good characters. There's good talks. There's good this. You watch this. It was the most painful hour of my life watching. The pacing was horrible. The dialogue was not good. They spent the first 15 minutes of the episode of what the 25 million budget was, just showing off buildings and trees that were glowing and just over showing things. It looked visually incredible, but I just didn't feel like this felt like Lord of the Rings. Honest to God, it's already got 83% Rotten Tomatoes, and I'm really not surprised. I'm sure it'll get lower. I'm sure people will love this, but for me, going for the Fellowship of the Ring, the pacing was there. Going through the pacing of this, it wasn't there, and you need pacing with this. Uh, and when I'm talking about pacing, I mean make something happen in the scenes. It was just conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation after conversation. There was no, you know, there was battles that were skipped. There's so much they could have shown instead of condensing that beginning bit of, the battles and the traveling. That could have been the first episode. It would have been intriguing, investing, but instead they made that like a 15, 20-minute montage. And then it was basically her going, "Oh, shall I go Valhalla? Shall I redeem my brother? Valhalla, redeem Valhalla." And then as she's going into Valhalla, she jumps off the boat. I'm calling it Valhalla because I don't know what it is. So overall, I will be giving a rating for every episode going into the finale and giving it an overall. So the Rings of Power, episode 1, the pros that give it points on the board, visuals, and that's it. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10 for an introduction to Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power. I am fucking so disappointed. I hoped and looked forward to this for so long. And yes, I'm gonna have my opinions. You guys are gonna have your own opinions. I hope you enjoy it better than me. But, being a lover of that trilogy, this felt no way near. And you can compare because, like I said, the beginning of Fellowship and the beginning of Rings of Power, they are your introductions to a story. I felt so connected to Frodo and Gandalf and the rest of the crew in that first hour comparison to the millions of characters they tried to introduce to. Can't name any names. They were jumping to and from places too many times, and ultimately they just didn't balance it well. Like Game of Thrones used to do in the early seasons, you have to spend a significant amount of time in certain places. Like the first ever episode, I believe, was all Winterfell. So you've got all your different characters, but you're in one location. If it's Robert Baratheon, if it's Ned Stark, if it's the other Starks, if it's the Lannisters, they're all in one place. Whereas this was just set over way too many places. They were jumping left, right, and center, and ultimately, I have no idea. And then that cliffhanger with the meteor and then some random dude curved up in the ball. We'll have to wait and see what happens in episode 2. I'm hopefully going to be watching it and reviewing it in the next couple of days, so stay tuned for that. And of course, if you feel different to what I've said, please let me know. Please let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe and like. Goodbye.